90% of all test takers score a perfect 170 on the quant section. This clearly means even though it might seem easy, solid prep work is required to make sure you don't make any silly errors on the day of the exam, right? So without any further ado, okay, let me introduce you to our speaker for the day. So this is Soumya Subramaniam, who has gotten an MSc in Math from IIT Madras. She then followed up that with an MS in Math from San Jose State University, and she is currently our resident quant expert at Galvanize. So ma'am, can you please take over?
Thank you, Sana. As Sana said, quant is actually an easier part for most of the engineers. So based on the feedback from students, we have a pool of questions that students ask frequently regarding the quant section of GRE, and this webinar is going to walk you through the answers to those questions. We'll be more focused on answering those frequently asked questions. Well, let's start with the most common question asked, maybe not related to GRE, but these questions have been asked by the children right from their school days. Children keep asking, ma'am, what is the pass mark? Ma'am, how much should I get to get a score of A1 or A2, to get a grade of B1, B2? What is the score that I should get? The same thing is happening in GRE also. Here at GRE2, we have different buckets. Based on the scores in each bucket, you get the university listings, apart from the other credentials like your background college, extracurricular activities, etc. So, moving on to the first question. What is a good quant score? If you look at the table here, I have listed down the quant scores in different buckets, and this is universally accepted buckets for quant scores. The top 10%, that's called as elite GRE scores, that would be 165 to 170. I hope you all know that the lowest score is 130 and the highest score is 170. You can get a maximum of 170, and not to demoralize you, the lowest score is given as 130. Top 10% of the score is considered to be 165 to 170. The second bucket, that's called as a competitive GRE score, that's the top 25% of the scores, that would be 159 to 164. A good GRE score is the top 50%, 153 to 158, and the rest falls under the below average category, 152 or below. So I'm sure you would be looking at this top 10% elite GRE scores. Now, as you know, I hope most of you know that the scores are reported not only as a raw score, but also as a percentile. So what does it mean? When you say that you've got a score of 170, it means that you have got a 97 percentile. 97 percentile means 97% of the test takers have got a score below 170. That's what it means. You don't get a 100 percentile in GRE. The maximum percentile that you can go up to is 97 percentile as per the ETS standards. That's a lookup table that they have got it based on the number of test takers. So 97 percentile corresponds to a score of 170. So, and apart from this, various other degrees like MS, PhD, etc., there are also a few universities, maybe an Ivy League universities also, which admit students for the MBA program based on their scores, right? Based on the GRE scores. So, what is that score that you need for quant, a good score for quant to get an MBA admit? As you can see, I've listed down a few Ivy League universities: Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, MIT Sloan, Columbia Business School, Cornell. All the MBA programs do accept GRE scores, but look at the quant scores that they need. They all fall in the elite category here, 165 to 170. That's the category, that's the score range that you need to get into a good Ivy League university for an MBA, right? Now, a next typical GRE question would be, typical doubt from the question test takers would be, what are the different question types that appear and which type appears most frequently? Again, I've listed it down here. There are basically 4 question types here. The quantitative comparison types. The quantitative comparison types would be like this. You will be given 2 quantities, quantity A and a quantity B. And there'll be something given here, some value given here. A question might be given here, might not be given here. And then this would be followed by 4 options. Eventually, this is a multiple choice question, but then a comparison question, and these multiple choices will be fixed. First option will always be quantity A is greater. Quantity A is greater. The second option would be quantity B is greater. The third option, A will be equal to B, and the fourth option would be cannot be determined. The relationship cannot be determined. These are the 4 options which are fixed for any quantitative comparison question. So this is one type of question. There would be 8 to 9 questions of this type. 8 to 9. This is the most frequently occurring. This is the mode of the different question types in GRE. Quantitative comparison question types, and these require rational thinking rather than an analytical approach. You don't have to spend much time on it, but you have to have enough concept clarity to attack these type of questions. Now, students who are enrolled with us, you would have already seen that we have a separate module called Tips and Tricks to Crack GRE, where I would have shared some tips to solve quantitative comparison types. And for those who have not enrolled with us, we have webinar videos on our, when you look at Google search for it, our webinar videos, one of our webinar videos deals exclusively on how to tackle quantitative comparison type questions in GRE. It would give you shortcuts to solve QC questions and walk you through that to make you understand that these types of questions should not take more than a minute to solve. They involve only rational approach rather than a proper normal analytical approach, right? The next type of questions is the numeric entry questions. Now, numeric entry questions would have, you need to plug in the answers here. A box will be given to you where you need to fill this up only with numbers. The question will be enter a number as an answer. So it will be like you need to write the answer as 1.2. It could be a decimal, it could be an integer, it could be a whole number. Any value can be written here, but no fraction. Suppose your answer is a fraction, they expect you to write a fraction. Then this is how the answer would be given. 2 boxes will be given, one for the numerator and one for the denominator. And the number of numeric entry questions that will be asked in GRE is very less, 2 to 3. The reason being that numeric entry questions obviously require you to do an analytical approach, do a formal method of solving it, which takes a little longer time. So that's the reason the number of questions is restricted. GRE is very student friendly, but make sure that you understand the concepts very well. Then multiple answer questions. Unlike multiple choice questions, what is the difference between both these types? Multiple choice question, there will be several options. There could be anywhere between 3 to 7 options given. And you need to tick only one of the correct options here. Whereas multiple answer questions, you need to check all the correct answers in a multiple answer question. Now again, there are webinar videos conducted by us and also put on the platform on how to tackle multiple answer questions and multiple choice questions. Both these types of questions, the best way to answer would be to go from the answer, plug in the values from the options given there into the question. It is like retracing the steps and you arrive at the answer in the shortest possible time. That's the best strategy to adopt when you solve MCQs and MAQs in a time test, especially like the test like GRE where there is no negative marking. And then you have data interpretation questions or DIs, which could be a MCQ or a MAQ. I've not written it specifically here because these are the only 4 question types, and DI is data interpretation where you just have to look at a graph and answer. They fall under MAQs or MCQs. You will not have any quantitative comparison question or numeric entry questions as part of data interpretation questions. Right. All said up. The next common question, calculophobia, numerophobia, whatever name you call it. A very common thing amongst students, math. Ma'am, I'm very scared of math. I'm not able to understand. I do not know how to approach the problems. So many things bother the students. They get very jittery about it. So I'm going to give you some tips with respect to GRE And most of the tips is applicable for any math exam for that matter. If you look at this, a very common saying, I'm sure most of you have heard it. I hear, I forget. I see, I remember. I do, I understand, by Confucius. So this doing forms the crux of math. Practice, practice, and more practice. You need to take in lots of practice tests, lots of mock tests, lots of assessments, but you have to do it meticulously, religiously. Practice, practice, more practice. That's going to lead you to a very good score in any competitive exam or any exam for that matter, be it a primary school level, high school level, or your college level, or be it exams like GRE, skill-based exams like GRE. Practice matters, doing matters, only then you will understand, as put by Confucius. Now, practice, blind practice is not going to help you out. What is going to help you out? Practice with some goal in mind. Practice in the right manner. So what do you do? How do you practice? Before you start practicing, there are a few formulae that you need to remember, which means for time tests like GRE, it is very important to remember the formula so that you can do it in a shorter duration of time, especially in geometry where you have surface areas and volume. Suppose the area of a circle is pi r square and the volume of a sphere is 4 by 3 pi r cube. All those things you need to have it in your fingertips to apply that, right? Because most of the questions are application-oriented questions. You have to remember the formulae. Not only the formulae, the rules. There are a few rules, say properties of integers, you will have some rules to solve. Percentages related sums, you will have some rules to solve. It is very important to remember those things. And so if you have not enrolled, prepare a handout on your own of the formulae and the rules. If you are enrolled with Galvanize with us, we at Galvanize help you out in this process. For every enrolled student, we send out a handout, a PDF with the formulae and rules. It could be a last minute brush up or it could be a reference material. So as and when you refer it, it stays in your mind. So we at Galvanize are here to help you out with all these things. So every enrolled student, I'm very sure if there are any enrolled students in this webinar, I'm sure you should be knowing by now that your course manager would have shared with you a PDF consisting of the handouts, consisting of the formulae and also the rules to crack the quantitative exam in GRE. The next very, very important thing is preparing a study plan. So when an exam timetable is given, it's very important that you plan how to study, when to study, plan it on a daily basis. But at Galvanize, we help you plan it on an hourly basis. We do that for you. Now, we take into account your diagnostic test score and the time limits that you have, the constraints that you have. It could be a professional and your personal commitments taken into consideration. You might have several constraints to sit and study for your GRE, and taking all those things into consideration, we give you a comprehensive study plan, right? Based on your time availability and the exam date, we at Galvanize prepare you for that by giving you a study plan. This is something that's got a very wonderful feedback from all the students. So if you have not enrolled at Galvanize, then the ball is in your court. You have to make sure you prepare your study plan, right? And then learn the squares and square roots at least till 35. This I would suggest for any student, even a school student. It is very important you learn at least till 35. You should be thorough with 35 square and a square root of that number, right? Till that you have to know this. Then learn the shortcuts and mnemonics. At Galvanize, we would use two shortcuts very often, ZoneF and PICE. So what is ZoneF? ZoneF is something that you use when you need to plug in some values, right? When you plug in values, you can't randomly choose values. You would go with the mnemonic ZoneF. Z stands for 0, O for 1, N for negatives, E for extremes, F for fraction. And PICE is a mnemonic that we use for word problems. As we progress through the webinar, I'll give you examples where to use the ZoneF and PICE. Then, reviewing your mistakes. Now, writing assessments or taking tests alone is not going to help you. You need to understand, analyze where you have made that mistake, right? If you have not enrolled, again, the ball is in your court. You need to maintain a log of your mistakes so that they don't recur. So what do I mean by saying that they don't recur? So it's not wrong to make mistakes in any context, right? You can make mistakes, only then you will learn. But making the same mistakes again and again is not going to help you at all, right? So you need to make a log of your mistakes to make sure that they don't repeat. You don't repeat the same mistake. Make new mistakes and learn from this. That's better, right? Now at Galvanize, again, we have a feedback report. We send you the feedback report with a log of your mistakes. So we take care of that also for you. All these things are taken care of by us at Galvanize. But if you're not enrolled at Galvanize, then you need to take care of all these things. Last but not least, whenever you prepare for a competitive exam, don't compromise on your sleep. Very, very important. You have to have a good night's sleep every day. Every night you sleep well, get up early in the morning, and then only your brain will open up, right? Then you have to go for shortcuts. Shortcuts, when I said shortcuts, I meant the approximation techniques. All the approximation techniques should be used wherever possible when you solve such questions. For example, you might have a QC questions where, for example, you can have a QC question where the quantity A, you might be given as 88 times 94, and your quantity B might be, say, 97 times 106. Don't blindly just go ahead and multiply these numbers and take a longer time. Just look at this and try to compare. You know that 88 is less than 97, 94 is less than 106. That tells you that quantity A is less than quantity B. That's all. I've not done any calculation here. That's the beauty of the way QC questions are framed in GRE. And that is where you use approximation techniques also. You could approximate it to the nearest 10 here. When I approximate 88, it becomes 90. 90 times 90, it's 8100 here. And this side, I'm going to approximate to the nearest tens. That would be 100 times 100. That would be 10,000 here. You know that 8100 is less than 10,000. You could go either for an approximation techniques, or just by looking at it, you can compare and write your answer. But don't go for any tedious calculations, because a skill-based exam like GRE does not involve any tedious calculation, right? Now, moving on. What are the topics that you need to focus? Now, your syllabus would have arithmetic, data analysis, geometry, algebra, and so many subtopics will be given to you. But which topics carry more weightage in GRE? Arithmetic, properties of integers. Integers would include prime numbers, composite numbers, factors, multiples, divisors, etc. Rates and work, mean time and work. The ratio and proportion, types of sums, inverse proportion, direct proportion, mixed variations, all these types of sums. Absolute values and inequalities, data analysis, most dreaded topic, permutations, combinations, probability, averages, data interpretation, and the geometry. Geometry has got least weightage in GRE till date. Only 2 to 3 questions have been asked in geometry. So, if you don't have time to focus on geometry, you can leave it. You can be rest assured that you will get a score of 165 only by studying these 3 topics very well. So, the fourth topic would be algebra, word problems in linear and quadratic equations, and then coordinate geometry and linear inequalities. These are the most important topics that are tested in GRE, apart from the other topics. So if you're thorough with these topics, you can get easily a score of 168 upon 170 in your quant. That you can be rest assured that you will get that score in quant. Right. Now moving on. The next question would be, how many hours a day should I dedicate to my quant prep? Ideally, on an average, a gap of 45 days should be the right time to space out your time to prepare for the exam, for the GRE exam, to prepare the topics that are covered in GRE. It could be like, you could spend, say, 2 to 3 hours regularly, or 3 to 4 hours on a per day basis. That would end up saying, say, to 135 hours per week or something like that. This includes, apart from your personal commitments, professional commitments, I'm saying this, you need to spend a minimum of 2 to 3 hours on a daily basis to crack your GRE. But make sure that you do not accumulate all the topics, all the stuffs on one single day just before the exam, like we all did during our school days or college days. This is not going to be helpful at all. You really need to go back to those primary days when, out of fear of the teacher, you did your homework regularly on a daily basis. You need to bring that momentum, that kind of dedication here. Again, it all boils down to how you prepare your study plan. So, how do you prepare your study plan? Follow the study plan meticulously, provided you prepare it properly. Space out your time to include both your professional and personal commitments too. Study plan. Study plan is very, very important to prepare for any competitive exam. Study plan at Galvanize, we give you the study plan. As I told you, it's on an hourly basis. We plan out your task. That is how detailed our study plan is. That's very, very important to crack any competitive exam. Moving on. The other questions would be based on the topics here. How should I approach answering data analysis type questions? What is the key to cracking permutations and combination type questions? How do I go about solving a data interpretation questions? All these come under that, as I told you, the dreaded topic, data analysis. Now, data interpretation, data analytics, Hadoop, big data. I'm sure you would have all heard these jargons everywhere these days. Artificial intelligence, quantum mechanics, quantum computing, qubits combined with data analytics. That's the driving force these days, right? I'm sure you must have heard about all these things. So data analysis is a topic. It's not only going to help you in your crack your GRE, crack your GMAT, etc. It's going to help you to get into a good job also. So what is data analysis? Data, what are the topics that are included in data analysis? Data analysis will have topics on measures of central tendency. This will have averages. Averages means arithmetic mean, median, and mode. These are the stuffs that are covered under averages. That is the measures of central tendency. Then you have measures of dispersion, quartiles, percentiles. I just walked you through percentiles when I discussed about the GRE scores. Percentiles, you will have standard deviation, normal distribution. Though a few very little questions, percentage of questions that will be tested on measures of dispersion will be max 2% or 3% of questions will be on this, but still we don't want you to lose out on that. So please be prepared on this. Again, we have webinar videos on how to crack these measures of dispersion type questions, which are less tested questions also in GRE. Again, for each subtopic here listed here, we have separate webinar videos. You can Google search and look for those videos also. Those who are enrolled with us, these are under one single module on the platform under tips and tricks to get a perfect score in GRE. All these are covered there as separate webinar videos. The next topic is permutations, combinations, probability, and data interpretation. Data interpretation is, you just have to interpret it from the graph. That's all is data interpretation all about. Now, why do you think these topics are dreaded by students? The reason is these are not covered in detail in high school. They are not taught the way they have to be taught in high school. That's what I would say. That's the reason most of the students find hard to comprehend these topics. Data interpretation, for once, is just interpreting from the graph, looking at the graph and writing the answer. Only arithmetic is involved. Even there, children find it very difficult to understand and analyze these graphs. So let's see a few examples to understand how to go about tackling data interpretation. Again, if you want it in detail, there are webinar videos on how to solve data interpretation questions, how to solve probability questions. Separate half an hour to 1 hour webinar videos on each of these topics are there on our platform, and also when you search, when you make a Google search in the search engine. Right. Now, a typical average question. The average of ages of 10 persons in a club was 32. What should be the age of the new person joining the club so as to increase the average by 4? The best strategy to solve these type of questions is without using the formula. The average age of 10 persons in the club was 32. I'm going to write 32 10 times. 32, 32, 32. Assume that I'm going to write 10 32s here. Now, there are 10 32s here. Obviously, the average of these 10 32s will be 32, right? When you have all these as 2's, the average will be 2. When all these are 32s, the average is 32. There are 10 in number. The number of 32s that I have written, assume that I have written 10 32s here. Right. Now, what should be the age of the new person joining the club so as to increase the average by 4? Now the average becomes 36. For an average to become 36, I have included one more member here. What I'm going to do here is, I've got 10 people here. I'm going to make their average 36. The 10th person also 36. There is a new person included here. If his weight is also 36, the age is also 36, then the overall average becomes 36, right? There are 11 persons now. There are 11 persons here. So If the average is 36, I've spread this 36 among these 11 buckets. I've got 36, 36, 36 here, 11, 36. So the average is 36. But ideally, I need only 32, which means I'm going to remove this 4 from each of the 10 ones and put that 4 in this last one. So removing 4 from this, take it back to 32. I've removed 4, which means I'm going to add the 4 here. Then again, remove 4 from this. 32, remove 4 from this, add that 4 here. Sorry. Now again, remove the 4 from this, add that 4 here. Find out how many 4s have been added here. As you can see, there are 10 36 from which I've removed the 4s. So which means I need to add 10 4s, that is 40. The last person's age will be 76. 36 plus 40 is 76. Without using formula, I've just used the logic of distributing or spreading the average among the people. One way of attacking averages. Again, we have a webinar video only to tackle average, and there are several examples of this type in the webinar videos. The next topic would be permutations, combinations. Now, permutations, combinations, why do students find it very difficult? Because they don't understand the concept properly. What is permutation? Permutation is nothing but arranging. Permutation is synonymous with the word arranging or ordering. Wherever there is an order, we go for permutation. Combination is just selection. Okay, I've given you a simple example here. How many 3-letter words can be formed using the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G only once? How many ways can you choose 3 distinct letters from the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G? Right. Now, what is the difference between the first question and the second question? How many 3-letter words can be formed? When you're going to form 3-letter words, you're going to choose 3 letters from these letters and then form a 3-letter word. So, I have 3 slots. You're going to form a distinct 3-letter word here. When the word distinct is not given, we assume that they are distinct. Just it also says that letters are repeated only once, which means there are no repetitions. So there are 7 letters here. So the first slot, I'm going to form a 3-letter word. First slot can be taken by any one of the 7 letters. The second slot can be taken by any one of the 6 letters. The third slot can be taken by any one of the remaining 5 letters. That is the way I have framed a 3-letter word. Now when I'm going to choose, that is where you use only combination. When you're going to choose 3 letters out of the 7 letters, I'm going to choose it in 7C3 ways. The second part of the question allows you only to choose, that is just 7C3. The first part of the question forces you to rearrange the 3 letters that you have chosen. So what have you done? You have chosen the 3 letters and then you're going to rearrange the 3 letters among themselves, that is in 3 factorial ways. So instead of writing it as 7P3, this is another way of writing it. Choose the 3 letters and then rearrange it. This is permutation and this is combination. Combination order does not matter. You're just selecting at random, but permutation order does matter. That is the reason I'm permuting. So what do you mean by order does matter? When I form a letter ABC, that is different from, form a word ABC, that is different from the word BAC. So these are 2 different words. But when I choose ABC and BAC, I've just chosen 3 letters ABC. So combination order does not matter, it's just a selection. Permutation order does matter, it is just a rearranging the letters, right? So this is the difference between permutations and combinations. Again, there is a webinar video which walks you through different examples to understand this concept better. It is only a subtle difference between a selection and selecting and arranging. That's the difference between combination and permutation. Moving on, data interpretation. As I told you, data interpretation questions involve arithmetic, mostly ratio, proportion, and percentages. It's very, very easy to tackle data interpretation questions provided you look at the graph properly. Normally in a graph, there is information all over the graph. The graphs are very small and the scales are very, very important in a DI question. So what should you do? What do I mean by looking at the graph? Looking at it means observing the graph carefully for the scale, for the units, for the information that's written all over the graph. I've given you a simple question here which would involve percentages. Let's see how to tackle this question. It says, In 2005, scooter sales in volume is how much percentage of total sales in 2007? 2005 scooter sales in volume. 2005 is here. Scooter sales is represented by blue bar here. So you have 482. That is the sale of scooters in 2005. The question is how much percentage is equal to X percentage of the total sales in 2007. 2007, this is the sale here. What is the total sales in 2007? You have a 476 plus 382 plus a 354. The total comes out to be, there's a 12 here, 16, and there's a 1 here, there's a 5, 8, 5, 8, and 11, right? Am I right? It's 1112. So X percentage of 1112. So you have 482 is X percentage of 1112. That's the question. I've framed an equation from this. So you need to find out X. So let me expand on this percentage. 482 is equal to X by 100 of 1112. So you just have to find out X here. X would be 48200, which is 48200 by 1112. Now, don't screw your brain. Don't use the online calculator. As much as possible, go for approximation. I'm going to approximate the denominator to the nearest thousands. The denominator would be 1000, right? Nearest 1000 would be 1112. The nearest 1000 will be 1000. I'm going to cancel it off. The answer will be 48.2% approximately. But then, what have I done with the denominator? Denominator I have decreased from 1112 to get this value, right? So the actual value is lesser than this value that you have got. So the actual value is closer to 48.2% and lesser than this. So the correct answer would be 46.82%. This is how you tackle with approximations. Again, percentages and approximations are given as separate webinar videos. For more examples, you can look for those webinar videos. Now, percentages, when I say percentages, let's move on. What are your top tips to answering percentages? Very common question. Percentages, there is no exam without any question, not even one question on percentages. Percentages is there everywhere. It could be a percentage change, percentage increase, effective percentage change, profit and loss percentages. It could be on simple interest, compound interest, finding the rate. Percentages is there everywhere. So how do you evaluate percentages? In a shorter manner, what are the tricks to solve percentage related problems? There are some rules that are laid out here. So it is advisable to follow these rules when you solve percentage related problems. 1% of X is equal to shift the decimal 2 places to the left, 10% of X. Let me give you an example here. When I say 1% of X, we are talking about 1% of say 52. Ideally, this means 1 by 100 times 52. So what are you doing here? You're shifting the decimal 2 places to the left, right? That's what is written here. 1% of X is shift the decimal 2 places to the left. 10% of X is shift the decimal 1 place to the left. 5% of X is half of 10% of X. 25% of X is 1/4 of X. 50% of X is X by 2. 100% of X is X. So these are tips that you should learn. Probably you memorize these tips so that it comes handy when you solve percentage related sums. Let us see how to put this into use. Suppose the question says, find out 22% of say 32. Now, what is the normal method to approach this problem? You would screw your brain, multiply 22 by 32 and divide by 100. Don't do that. Apply the standard percentage that you just learned. Split this 22 in terms of standard percentages. I'm going to split it as 10% plus 10% plus 1% plus 1%. So this would be equal to 10% of 32 is shift 1 decimal place, 3.2, plus 10% again would be 3.2, plus 1% is shift 2 decimal places to the left, that would be 0.32. Again, 1% is shift 2 decimal places to the left, that's again 0.32. The answer would be, this would be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the final answer would be 7.04. So 22% of 32 is 7.04 without doing any multiplication. There is one more rule on percentages that you need to use. That is, a percentage of B is same as B percentage of A. A percentage of B is same as B percentage of A. What is this? When do I use this? When does it come in handy? So suppose you're going to find out 22 percentage of 25. It's very hard to find out, or you can do it by splitting the percentages I told you earlier, or the best way here is to find out 25 percentage of 22. As I told you earlier, when I laid out the rules, I said 25 percentage of x is nothing but x by 4. So ideally you need to find out 22 by 4, which is actually 5.5. Within a fraction of a second, you get the answer as 5.5 here without even evaluating all these split up, also neither multiplying the values. Next would be word problems. This is very important to understand how to tackle word problems, because children get very panicky, and most of the DI questions are paragraph driven questions. In the sense, they are like passages, like your RC passages. It takes time for you to read that question. So we at Galvanize have framed a mnemonic PIES. P stands for break the problem into parts. I stands for collect and connect the information. E stands for frame the equation. S stands for solve the equation. Given any word problem, please do incorporate this mnemonic PIE. Let's see how to apply this mnemonics. A snail climbed up a ramp at a speed of 0.2 miles per hour and then moved along a horizontal surface. Now when I read it like this, it is not going to make any sense to you. Take your time to read it. But then when I read it, make sure that you're going to break it into parts. The whole word problem that's given here, when you read it as a whole, it's not going to make sense. So I'm going to break it into parts. A snail climbed up a ramp at a speed of 0.2 miles per hour. Till this, let us call it as one part. I'm going to convert this into a diagram. So when I say break it into parts, you could also draw a picture or a table to connect the information. A snail climbed up a ramp at a speed of 0.2 miles per hour, right? And then moved along a horizontal surface at a speed of 0.4 miles per hour. That's my second part of the question. It's moving along a horizontal surface at 0.4 miles per hour. Then moved down a slope at a speed of 0.6 miles per hour. It's moving down a slope at a speed of 0.6 miles per hour. So I've drawn this diagram. Till this, it's completed, right? I've taken care of all these things in this diagram. If the distances traveled by in each part of the journey were the same, the next part of the question, distances traveled the same. Let me call it as D, D, and D. Each part is D. I'm going to label it as A, B, a C, and a D. All these distances are D. What was the average speed of the snail over the entire journey? Make sure you understand this average speed is always given by this formula. It's not the average of the three speeds. Average speed is always given by this formula, total distance by total time. So total distance traveled, you know, it's equal to 3D. Now what is the total time taken? For each part of journey, evaluate the time. You know, speed is equal to distance by time. So in each case, here the time will be, T will be equal to distance by T. Distance by speed, D by 0.2 here. Here it would be D by 0.4, and here it would be D by 0.6, right? So this would be 3D by D by 0.2 plus D by 0.4, plus D by 0.6. So when you evaluate it, it comes to around 18 by 55 miles per hour. This is the final answer. Now, the question is asking you to round it off to 2 decimal places. This is very, very important. You're going to round it off to do 2 decimal places. You need to divide it, use your long division method, or here you can use the calculator. But make sure that when you're going to round it off to 2 decimal places, you round up when the value is greater than 5. Suppose your answer is, since it's a fraction less than 1, you might get some answer like this, 0.612 or 3 or something. Suppose you get your answer as 0.6135. When the question says round it off to 2 decimal places, I could just write the answer of 0.61. On the other hand, suppose your answer is 0.615, then when you're going to round it off to 2 decimal places, the answer should be written as 0.62. This is a numeric entry question. A box will be provided for you to write the answer. So this is one way or 2 ways of approaching a word problem. One way is to draw a picture. The other way is you could always replace this by a table and then connect and collect the information. The next question would be how to overcome difficulty in inequality in absolute value questions. So to solve inequality questions and absolute value questions, you need to understand these rules here. Remember the rules. Mod x is equal to a implies x is equal to plus or minus a. What does this mean? When I say mod of minus 5 is equal to 5, whatever be the input, the output is positive here. Mod 5 is equal to 5. Mod 5 is also equal to 5. So mod x is equal to a means x, the value inside the modulus could be positive or negative, but the output is always positive. Mod x is less than or equal to a implies minus a is less than or equal to x less than or equal to 5. For example, mod x is less than or equal to 5, then x always lies between a minus 5 to a 5. Now look at the last one. Mod x greater than or equal to a implies x is greater than or equal to a and x is less than or equal to minus a. So when you have mod x say greater than or equal to 5, then it means that x is greater than or equal to 5 and x is less than or equal to minus 5, which means suppose you're going to draw a number line for this. To understand this better, for the third point, suppose your minus 5 is here and a 5 is here. So you're going to look at all these values here and all these values here. X can take any of these values and these values. Still mod x will be greater than or equal to 5. Let me give you a small example here. What are the possible values of x such that mod of x minus 2 is less than 7? This is a multiple answer question. As I told you, multiple answer questions and multiple choice questions are best done by plugging in values from the options that are given here. What are the possible values of x such that mod of x minus 2 is less than 7? So one approach is, the shortcut approach is to go from the answer. Let me try going from option A, which is minus 7. When I substitute minus 7 here, I get it as this value is 9. 9 is not less than 7. So this option is not correct, right? Let me move on to minus 3. Substitute minus 3, minus 2, that's equal to 5. That is less than 7. So this is a correct option. I'm going to tick it. Now go on to 5. Mod of 5 minus 2 is equal to 3. That is again still less than 7. This is also a correct option. So I'm going to tick it. Then the next option will be mod of 7 minus 2, which is equal to 5. This is also less than 7. So this is also a correct option. So check it. Last one is 11. Mod of 11 minus 2 will be equal to 9, which is not less than 7. So I'm not going to check this option. So I've just got 3 options which are correct. This is one way of attacking MCQ, and the best way and the shortest way to attack these MCQ type of questions or MAQ type of questions. This is a multiple answer question where more than one answer is correct. On the other hand, I could also follow an analytical approach in case you are interested in it. I'm just going to apply this formula. Mod x less than a implies minus a less than x less than a. So mod of x minus 2 less than 7 means minus 7 less than x minus 2 less than 7. I'm free to add plus 2 on both sides, which means when I add 2 on both sides, you get this side, the leftmost side of the inequality becomes minus 5 less than. When you add 2 here, it becomes just x. When you add 2 here, the answer would be 9. So x lies between a minus 5 and 9. Out of the given options here, obviously minus 3, 5 and 7 lie in this range, and those are the correct options that you have already checked. So these are the methods to approach multiple choice and multiple answer questions. Right. The next frequently asked question is, how do I manage time when answering questions? Now, again, as I told you, QC questions do not involve any calculations. It just involves rational, logical approach. Concept clarity is a must in QC questions. You don't have to think about any formula here. There are 8 to 9 QC questions in the exam, and on an average, you should be spending close to just 1 minute on a QC questions, maybe less than that. Numeric entry questions, there are 2 to 3 in number. Spend not more than 2 minutes on this question. The reason this 2 minutes is given more than QC question is numeric entry questions would involve an analytical approach, a formal way of solving it. And it could also go up to 3 minutes. Sometimes 2 or 3 minutes max is the time that you would spend on a numeric entry question. MAQ and MCQ, not more than 2 minutes. Maximum for MCQ is 1 minute and 30 seconds only. But if it's a DI question, data interpretation question, then it could go up to 3 minutes. So anywhere between 1 minute and 3 minutes is the time that you need to allot for a question. Now it's advisable to space out this time properly. Take that full time to solve a given problem. Do not hurry. Do not hasten to submit. If you feel that there is some kind of, you are jittery about the problem, you're doubtful about that problem, you can always skip it within a section, move on to the next problem, come back and revisit it. Please do not skip any question permanently in GRE because there is no negative marking. By chance, your answer might be right, you get grades for that. If your answer is not right, still you don't get a grade, you don't get a negative marking for that. So please don't leave anything for chance, and please make sure you do not skip any question in a time test like GRE where there is no negative marking. Do not skip any question. Allot anywhere between 1 minute to 3 minutes to solve every question in GRE. Right. Next is any tips and tricks. Right. Again, we have shortcuts to get a perfect score in GRE, a separate webinar video, last minute tips and tricks are there to get a perfect score in GRE. All those things are part of our webinar videos. You can go ahead and look at it. And again, I've shared the same thing here. Read the question properly. A common mistake, even if you're thorough with the syllabus, you might not read the question properly. You might miss out on the subtleties given in the question, and then you get it wrong in the exam. Avoid calculation and conceptual mistakes. Time management, this is what I just told you. Implement zone F and pies. Apply shortcuts, go for approximations. Back substitute in MCQ and MAQ. That's what I meant by go from the answers. Data interpretation, pay attention to units, scales, look all above, below the graph, values in X and Y axis. Stick to our study plan, take the mock test, review your mistakes, maintain a pocket notebook of formulae and shortcuts. Right. So finally, the formula for success is if you are enrolled at Galvanize, concept clarity plus untimed test, there are lots, close to 2,000 plus questions, especially in quant, for you to analyze and understand and take the assessments. Concept clarity plus untimed practice test plus time practice test plus pre-mock test plus mock test divided by the duration. When I say divide it, you need to space it out according to the time limit that you have. It could be a 45-day plan, it could be a 60-day plan, divided by the number of days that you have plus the instructor's help. We have a 24/7 instructor's help at Galvanize. Maximum 1 day your doubts will be cleared. Plus course managers push from Galvanize. Course managers are behind you like your moms, more than your moms. They're going to remind you of your task on a daily basis. Multiply it by your effort. End of the day, your effort is all that matters, minus lethargy. Put aside all your lethargy or all your indisciplinedness, whatever that word is. Put aside it, and you'll get a perfect score of 170 in quant. And what do? You land into the best universities in the world if you apply this formula for success.